The VISTA team at Western introduced themselves. What we've put together first with Alan Comp and now with John Michael and Josh Jones is a really cool relationship. We've had about 10 students over 5 years earn their masters through us based on their VISTA work all over the country. And the second year of our masters is not your usual research thesis. It's a get a project done for an organization project over the course of the second year, which is a great fit for VISTA. And so those folks through time have used their VISTA work as their master's project for us, and they've zoomed into our classroom. We were doing this way before COVID. And so that's been a really cool relationship. We doubled down on it this year by having in-house VISTAs for the first time. And so there are 6 of them within the School of Environment and Sustainability who are funded by VISTA to do their 40 hours a week for organizations within and that we're partnered with, and they will be able to turn that into their master's project if they would like to. A couple of them have joined us today. And so I see Nate, I see Lily, I see Skylar. Sorry, I'm scanning a lot of names here. So if you're part of the Western team, introduce yourself and kind of share under the umbrella of the School of Environment and Sustainability, what's your role as a VISTA? What are you serving as a VISTA? Let's start with you, Nate.
Hey everybody, my name is Nate. I'm currently working, serving my VISTA term for the Western Alliance for Restoration Management, which is a 501c3 nonprofit under Western, and we work on mining reclamation projects. For my VISTA duties, I'm currently fundraising, capacity building, and setting up some educational programs to build capacity for some mining reclamation projects. Lucky enough to be doing my master's project through this VISTA, setting up my own research and hopefully setting it up for someone else to take over in the future.
And our hope is that having a curriculum surrounding the VISTA experience, a faculty partner, as well as a supervisor, as well as people like John Michael, that the individual can really elevate the outcome. Lily, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm currently serving my AmeriCorps VISTA year through the Center for Public Lands, which is also a nonprofit associated with Western. And this is my first year, so I'm just kind of diving into some different projects that the center is putting on. But down the road, we'll be more into grant writing and community outreach with just some of the underserved youth within the community, and just kind of looking into how to get them involved with graduate and undergraduate mentors, and kind of get them involved into environmental studies sort of that way with mentors.
Yeah, our Cold Harbor Institute, where Lily works, there are about 350 acres of incredibly biodiverse land 7 miles from campus. And their executive director is one of our faculty members. And we see it as a laboratory. All great grad programs should have a laboratory for how to run an organization. And so they aren't just experimenting with green building or watershed management or regenerative grazing or environmental education. They're also experimenting with how do you run a cutting edge organization that serves the community without constantly and desperately trying to find money. And so in terms of the underserved youth component of Lily's position, the Gunnison Valley here has a really strong indigenous Cora population. So those are indigenous Mexican immigrants who come here with their expertise in ranching. And so historically, we have had an environmental education and natural resource career program for Cora youth, and we find that they actually bring a lot of knowledge to the table as well. And so that ran out of funding about a year ago. And so if Lily can revive that, it'd be incredible. Go ahead, Dana.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dana. I work for the Center for Cold Climate Food Security, which is neither a nonprofit or a government organization. It just lives under Western Colorado University's organizations. It's a bit of a hub for student-led food organizations on campus, and our goal is to work towards building 3 separate passive solar greenhouses around Gunnison. And also to implement a food systems minor to really serve the students that have been working so hard to do food systems projects on campus.
And it's so hard for local organic food to be affordable. Our community, our county has 25% the population is below the poverty rate. And so to make that farmer's market, to make local food not just a boutique thing for middle-class professors, right? But for all members of our community, Dana's work is going to be really important to that. And I think last Wednesday morning we had a frost, so Dana has to get really creative, right? Skylar, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Skylar. I'm a coordinator for the Center for Mountain Transitions. And what I'm working on now is a lot of capacity building and networking through some program development involving gap year programming and getting underserved communities into college and successful in their college careers.
Yeah, and Skylar has over a decade background in worldwide environmental education, has real gap year connections. And the $1 million question is how to make gap years not just for rich kids, and also how to make sure the gap experience connects with underserved communities. And so I'm real excited about that. Is there anyone else from my team that I don't see in the blur of names in front of me? Okay, great. So
I'm here.
Zach. Hello, Zach. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Zach, and I'm getting an echo here. Okay, that's better. My title is Community Engagement Coordinator at Western, just like everyone else. And my job is to help the undergraduate students at Western in the School of Environment and Sustainability connect with community members and teach them how to navigate the implementation and execution of a service project in the community. And beyond that, I also work with students across the country and outside of the country at different universities to build a network of resource sharing based on resilient practices in their own communities as well. So a lot of capacity building done by this job.
Zach can be a connector for sort of all the other vistas, because to the extent that they want to engage students, right, in their volunteer coordinating work and get students out there doing the direct service that they're really not supposed to do as vistas, Zach's that connector, you know, for a university-wide service learning network. So, and Zach's been here for a decade and really knows the organizations that work with underserved communities as well. You know, we're thinking a lot, you know, with the reemergence of the Black Lives Matter movement, we're thinking a lot about intersectional environmentalism, right? Environmentalism that gets to the social inequalities that are at the source of environmental problems, and we're trying to unsettle the way in which environmental solutions are just for the privileged. And so, you know, this team, we're really excited to have them here. John Michael and Josh, thank you. We're only a month in. It's been really exciting. I want to share something with you on the screen here to give you a sense of how extensive this project network is. We send out 25,000 hours per year of master's projects worldwide to extend the reach of overextended NGOs. And so this map here, and we had someone else who, oh, Noel, go ahead.
That might be Noelle Bowers, if that's her last name.
Okay, Noel. share where you're zooming in from, what organization and what location, Noel, please. Passionate about, food systems, food justice. You can just do that. And on the left here, it lists any project that's ever happened around food. And this is a homegrown web resource, and it's a great way to continue the legacies of projects. It'd be cool if I had another color for all the 10 that were Vistas, right? The 10 people who did our program from their Vista position and used their Vista work as their master's project. But I wasn't that smart when I put this together. So, it's a space where you can start dreaming if you're looking for a project-oriented master's. But I want to have a more general conversation with you. You will have the opportunity to pick the brains of my Vistas about how they blended Vista with the master's. But I also want to be a resource for you today if you're just looking at a post-Vista master's and ours doesn't interest you, just to think in general about grad school. I will tell you that, and I may lose grad students from this conversation who are on the screen right now from saying this. In my view, there's only 3 reasons to do grad school, and no others. Actually, Skylar, Dana, Nate, could you leave the call? No, just kidding. So one is more spiritual. If there's a certain question that you can't not ask at the highest level, it just burns in your soul. And you need to engage with who from my species has asked this question in the most cutting edge way, and how can I add to that conversation? Because I can't live without being at the cutting edge of that question. And grad school just feeds that, because that is where you can find the highest level of engagement with a certain set of questions. And that's why I went to grad school. In 1996, I went to a master's program that had no departments, no grades, and 0 lecture halls. And it was a place just to pursue the questions I had about environmental philosophy. Didn't have any career goals tied to it. I just knew at 22 I had to keep asking those questions at that level. Very few people are in that position. A lot of you who are not my age were raised right in the middle of the 2008 recession, which made you a much more pragmatic generation, and I respect that. Your parents may be my age, mid-40s and above, who are still stuck with student loans, and so they've taught you to be more pragmatic, and I respect that. And so the second reason to do grad school is you've tried to take your undergrad degree to the place of your dreams, and you hit a wall where you learned either from job descriptions you needed a master's, or the job description allows for bachelor's, but your generation's so educated and so competitive, you recognize you need that as well, right? The third reason would be you want to rethink things. You do have career momentum, and it's not feeding you anymore. And you're not sure how to shift mid-career. And you need a space of contemplation, a space of trying on for size different pathways. Not a lot of programs are designed for that. Some are. Ours happens to be one of them, but there are others out there. Portland State has a cool one. Prescott College has an interesting one. I think it relies a little too much on distance, but it has an interesting one. And that third reason is an interesting one as well. And so, kind of do a little soul searching. Do you fit one of those categories? If you don't, keep trying to see where your bachelor's will take you. Bachelor's plus Vista, coming out of the COVID era, what can you put together for yourself? Let me open it up for a minute. How many of you find yourselves in that first category of there's a certain question you can't not ask, and you want to be at the expert level in examining that question? It's going to feed you. Maybe you want to be a professor, maybe not. But you just need to go there. A lot of Gen Xers would raise their hand, but you know, show yourself on the screen if you fit that category. And I would argue VISTA self-selects for people who are more about career and community action. So I did not expect anybody to volunteer for this one. Zach, you have a master's. Sydney raised her hand. Okay, Zach, did you just accidentally appear, or were you going to say something about this category?
I wasn't planning on saying something, but I did not magically appear. I can say something. I felt like I chose a master's for that exact reason. There was just more that I wanted to know, and I felt like the master's was the best way to get there for me, stuff that I wasn't learning from my professional experiences that I was having before, and I wanted that personal growth through the master's program at Western was the one that fit for me.
Well, and I can say firsthand, it was inspiring to watch that happen for you. Not to embarrass Zach, but in 20 years, I think your experience has been one of the most inspiring from a student I've ever seen. So thank you for that, Zach. Sydney, go ahead.
Oh, well, I just graduated in May. So before I applied to become a VISTA, I spent some time applying to PhD programs because I'm interested in pursuing some like philosophy and performance studies stuff. And so talking about representation in art and in our communities. Funding didn't work out for me this year, which is why I didn't end up doing that. But now I'm using VISTA as sort of an opportunity to explore sort of the practical side of those conversations before diving into like the theory of it.
You know, and that's interesting. If you all Google, or sorry, Ecosia is the one that plants trees. If you do an Ecosia search, Orion Magazine, Alan Comp, right? Your founder was an artist. And your founder saw VISTA projects as necessarily artistic, right? And that Orion article, if you haven't read it, I don't know if it's required reading or not. I think it was West Virginia, Josh, I don't remember, but the mine that they reclaimed, they covered the mine entrance with a black and white historic photo of the great grandparents of the current citizens of that town coming out of the mine. It's like eerie. And then in their ecological restoration, they added beauty that people could interact with. That's not quite performance, Sydney, but there's always been an artistic vibe to this to this core. Am I right, Josh?
Yeah, if I can get unmuted there. Absolutely. I'm not familiar with that, but that now I'm very interested. Tell more about that.
And I feel like these conversations about like representation, you know, that apply to art, apply in other spaces too. So like for my VISTA, I'm with National Park Partners, and we're talking about, you know, equal access to outdoor spaces. So, you know, there ends up being a lot of overlap.
Yeah, and that access question is an important one. You know, if people don't feel safe walking by a police officer in their own neighborhood, why would they feel safe in your park? And that question has become more important than ever, huh, Sydney?
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of what we're sort of talking about just in this first week.
So important, so vital. Thank you for that. You know, and the second category is you kind of hit the wall with your bachelor's degree, right? And you recognize you need to, you know, get the accreditation and build some new skills to be more competitive for jobs you've already identified that you want. Show your face if you're in that category. You mind sharing, Dana, a little bit just to get the ball rolling?
Sure. I got my undergraduate degree, in Colorado Springs at UCCS in dietetics. And upon graduation, realized that I did not want to be a dietitian. And it's quite an expensive road to get there as well. And over the years, I just kind of realized that environmental sustainability and making organizations more sustainable was a big passion of mine. It was just an undercurrent I carried with me wherever I worked, didn't matter where. And I even started to apply to some jobs that I was very underqualified for, really crossing my fingers. And then finally I just decided that it was time to go get the qualifications and make what I really wanted to happen in my life happen. So.
Yeah, and we'll get to this point you have about applying to stuff that seems beyond you, because you learn so much from that process. And you never know, you're not in control of what an applicant pool looks like, right? And you're not in control of what happens in the room. You know, if someone has something weird for lunch and they're like, who's this person straight out of college, right? You can't predict that. You're not in control of that, but you are in control of whether or not you put yourself out there, right? And you are in control of whether or not you put your best foot forward. And from that process, you learn, if you did not get the job, you can follow up with the employer and find out what are your gaps. In fact, everyone should know in our master's program, before the second year, every student has to do what's called a gap analysis, where they find and write cover letters and resumes for actual jobs. And from that process, they write up what they're missing to be as competitive as possible. And then at the end of their second year, they have to show that they've kind of gone through their checklist of what they were missing. And in some cases, students have kind of gone for it, applied, and actually gotten a job before their second year. And then that job became their master's project from that location. So that's kind of a cool way to do it. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm really in that position. I haven't actually applied for a master's program yet, but I think that's what I'm trying to figure out with this VISTA term is, do I need a master's program or not? Or can I get the skills and experiences you need just from working experiences? I think if I end up going for a master's or some sort of higher degree, it probably will be because I need a little extra something to set myself apart for whatever skills I need or qualifications for certain positions. But I'm not totally sure if I actually need that or not. That's kind of what I'm working on for this coming year.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And I think you're going to get a lot of advice probably from your site supervisor and others.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got PhDs here and other grad students and stuff coming through. So definitely a good place. In addition to all the Stewards connections, got some good resources to try to figure that stuff out, what I need.
Right. Well, and organizational employers and agency leaders might even be more informative than people who have graduate degrees, because the other ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Nate?
So I jumped into this degree in this master's program because I've spent 8 or 9 years doing boots on the ground land management jobs. And while I love that, it's my favorite thing to build trails and do forestry work. I really wanted to kind of get into the administration of it and be kind of the land manager that makes the decisions, that I think benefit the community and the ecosystem the most. And unfortunately, there has been a pretty bad track record of land managers kind of abusing that and making a lot of decisions that don't directly benefit the immediate communities surrounding these ecosystems or the ecosystems themselves. So I really wanted to get in here to kind of change that system. And really, and I think the MEM program has taught me a lot about my own personal land ethic, my own environmental opinions, and I think it's been an awesome journey so far.
So Nate, did you feel like, since you didn't just want a Forest Service job, but you wanted to innovate within the Forest Service, your undergrad education maybe didn't empower you for that kind of tweaking? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't necessarily feel very empowered to innovate. I felt I got my environmental science undergrad degree in Boulder, and while that was an awesome degree and it was really interdisciplinary and taught me a lot of things that I've been able to apply directly to the MEM, I didn't necessarily feel like it gave me a lot of the skills to really try to innovate the system, more or less just jump into it and do what's already been done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's high level stuff. It takes either a 20-year career or a high level of education to be able to feel like you can push those boundaries sometimes. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, for sure.
Three, is you have done some things since your bachelor's, and you do have some experience under your belt, and your resume is finally bumped off that high school pizzeria, right? You got, but you're like thinking maybe you're not fed by that career, and you want a space. You want a space to have some expert advice from faculty, from communities you're working with. You want to immerse yourself in a community network of kindred spirits, fellow students who are bringing connections to you so you can rethink your future, maybe change directions. So show yourself if that's your category. Oh, good. There's going to be yet another category I haven't thought of. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, yes. I don't know. I just graduated in May with a degree in history, and I mean,
that was my bachelor's, Will. Back in the, yeah.
And I don't know. I think a master's would be a really good time to like discern what exactly I want to do with it, or kind of do going forward. Really figure out a bit more about kind of what I really want to do, and how I can best put my skills and my knowledge to use.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, it was, I had the history degree, and right before I earned that degree, I kind of wanted to, I was a ski coach, and I had the opportunity to do that year round in Colorado, France, and New Zealand, and I broke my back skiing, and I laying on my back for 6 months, just started eating up philosophy. This is pre-internet, okay, 1990, whatever, and was broke, didn't have cable, couldn't ski, couldn't jog, couldn't go on walks. Like, what am I going to do? So I just started eating up philosophy, and knew from that what I wanted to do with my master's. But I actually used an AmeriCorps term. It wasn't VISTA. I ran a conservation corps for 2 years after my master's to do the kind of thinking you're talking about, Will. So I hope you all can see VISTA this way and not just grad school this way. And I know John Michael and Josh offer a lot of professional development resources to you, to use it for that, because by the end of my AmeriCorps 2 years, I had clarity, Will, that, I wanted a PhD. I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to be a professor who brought conservation core elements to the academic experience. And so, those contemplative spaces are important. They do not need to be grad school, right? And many of you maybe already are there. Yeah, Noelle, I'm glad you said that. You don't like fall into one of those categories. I've never fit into one category for anything in my life. Yeah, I hear you. And so if I may ask you openly, everybody, and we don't have to go around the horn. We don't have to hear from everybody, but just a couple of you, like, and my 3 reasons, and that's from just seeing 150 people go through my program. Those are the 3 reasons I've seen. Okay. But if it doesn't speak to you, why are you interested in grad school? Why do you think it might be a need?
I can jump in, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, so I also relate to all 3. I got my undergrad in art history. And since then, like when I was working on my undergrad thesis, I discovered new questions that I hadn't really been able to explore in undergrad. So the first category, I think I really fit into. But also I want to work in museums, and you can't even get an entry-level job at a museum really until you have a master's. Yeah. So it's not so much of I don't relate to any of them, and maybe I relate too much to all of it.
Yeah, I saw that, and I see Megan's, kind of 1 and 2. her interest in academia, both because of career and those questions, and Noelle, yeah, I'm really not wanting to be pigeonholed at all, right? We all have our own unique reasons for our life vision.
For sure.
So, if you choose from one of those reasons or another, that you want to pursue graduate school, obviously, for me, my advice, and I could talk a little bit at the end about process, I will, and then answer questions. But, for me, there's a difference between principles and pathways, okay? Like, you have your life principles, right? These are the things you value. These are your goals for yourself and your community. But you have to recognize that there are 1,000 ways to reach each one principle, right? And so, if your principle is bringing inclusivity and reducing barriers for different cultures in the national parks, right? Grad programs, and our master's has a Center for Public Lands with a Wildness and Diversity Core trying to take this exact question on. Grad school is only one pathway to that principle, right? Working your way up from seasonal, taking park assignments in places that are not ideal, with your bachelor's, with that patience, with the national service you have, which will give you 1 year of non-competitive application, right? After VISTA, right in there with military veterans for those jobs, right? You may build up that voice within the national parks. And so just always remind yourself that there's never only one pathway to a certain principle. And I have found that social movements, organizations, individuals that confuse pathways and principles get themselves in trouble. When I expanded my program, I grew the professors from 3 to 15, and we needed more space. And I'd always wanted to expand up from this flat roof because it shows a good model of urban sprawl, right? And, but the principle is really a space for students to hang out with professors who can offer privacy or public space. And it was just too expensive to go up. And I just clung to that. I clung to the pathway of moving up. When I finally let go of that pathway, and I was just, well, what's the principle here? The principle is a private space for faculty to meet with students and public spaces for students to hang out. I found a more affordable way to reach it. And so, always ask yourself, like, the pathway of graduate school, what principle is it trying to reach? And for me, the main principle is a livelihood based on your values, right? A livelihood based on your values. And you think about yourself, you think about people you came up with, people that you're colleagues with. You can find, if livelihood's over here and values are over here, some people have found ways to fully live out their values, right? But they're going to have student debt forever. They're not going to be able to build that dream straw bale home. They're working at a coffee shop and living out their values through volunteering and activism, right? And then you probably have friends that have built up a pretty healthy livelihood. They picked a lucrative major, they got a lucrative job, they make good money, but they feel alienated. When you really sit down and talk with them, they feel alienated from who they are and that their labor does not advance who they are. Grad school should be a master's degree should be a 2-year workshop in which you merge the two, in which you experiment with building a livelihood based on your values, where you compromise neither livelihood nor values. And for you to crack the code on that, that's the good life. That's the good life. And so what questions can you, do you have to be asking as a human being? What career vision do you recognize requires a grad degree, right? What space do you need to experiment with that livelihood based on your values? If you have clarity on those 3 things, then you know what you're looking for, right? And once you find that program, then you're trying to seek out professors who are asking that question and set up a phone call with those professors to think through, okay, does their lab have funding for you? Are there TA-ships? What's been the career placement rate of their graduates? And any other questions you have. And then you want to start reading if that conversation goes well, then you start reading their work. You build an intellectual relationship with them so that when you go to apply, they're in the room promoting your application, saying, I want this person in my lab or running projects under me. It's a more personalized process than your undergrad. So the way we do it, and I'll let Skylar, Dana, Nate, Zach add anything they want. A couple of them are brand new, so they don't have as much to offer, but fresh perspective is important. How do we do the livelihood based on your values, right? Is that, like I said, that gap analysis before the second year, the project, getting a project off the back burner for an organization, instead of getting your master's and then doing an internship, you're building the internship into the master's, you're building the VISTA into the master's. If you get a sweet job, that job is your master's. That's resulted in an 85% environmental career placement rate within 6 months of graduation. But it also starts from day one, because from day one, students are meeting different environmental stakeholders through field experiences, class projects, meeting their classmates, some of whom are running organizations. And so, it's about having that community that is a network, a professional network for you. And then it's about having a curriculum that gives you time and credit and pride and recognition in experimenting with that livelihood based on your values and building a resume through the academic work. And that's how we do it. But what other programs bring together that livelihood based on your values is something you're going to have to obviously find. And you have obviously all the resources of the internet for that. Let me ask Zach, who just graduated from our program, that phrase livelihood based on your values, Zach, how did that translate into your graduate experience? And what advice do you have for people looking for grad programs?
I mean, staying true to yourself is first and foremost. And that's what ultimately drew me back to school. I didn't ever think I wanted to do a master. I never thought I was going to go pursue a master's education, but my values were not in alignment with the path that I had chosen. And when I was in Gunnison looking at Western, who had just started this amazing program, I found out that it did align directly with my values. And after I dove deeper into it, the connections that I've made from the program have just set me up with multiple avenues, and this VISTA being one of them, to stay in touch with my values and my passions. One of them being connected with the universities, with learning institutions, with nonprofit organizations, environmentally focused organizations. And so it's been a channel for me to stay in touch and also stay in this community that I love. So my path might be a little bit unique in that I wasn't really pursuing a master's education, but what I did find was something that did harbor those values.
Deanna and Nate, you're in the middle of it. You're moving into that second year. You're doing the gap analysis. You're proposing your project. You're hoping that's the launch pad for a career. And by the way, livelihood's more than your job, everybody. It's also where do you want to live, the kind of time off you can have, your relationship with your community and nature, your ability to have physical health. Livelihood is many things, including your job. How's that process going for you, Dana and Nate?
Awesome. The process is going well, I'd say. What drew me most to not just grad school, but this program in particular was I came for the network, and I wanted to be able to cultivate my own master's degree. I didn't want to be, because my undergrad was so specific and so track set. Once you got that degree, you were set to do one particular thing. I loved the freedom of being able to design the rest of my life with my master's degree. And I think that it's provided a lot of opportunity to find your own fire, what kind of like gets you excited about stuff, and then you get to go chase after that. It's a really cool program in that it enables you to do what it is that you're passionate about, and find your values if you haven't found them yet, but also you take the initiative to chase after the things that you find are important. So I think that this program, I've really found that, and I'm hoping that my master's project really sets me up to live where I want to live, and maybe the town of Crested Butte will hire me after I set up a composting program for them. We'll see. But
well, I know they're impressed with you. They just don't have any money right now. They are impressed with you.
That's okay. That's also what grad school's for. I'll earn money after. So yeah, I would say the process is working as much as I put effort into it to make it work. That's the important part to remember. It's not like undergrad where they prime you for success. You have to find your own success here, which is cool.
And VISTA is a good model for that. You all are bringing the skills of self-sufficiency within your VISTA appointments to grad programs. And so if you're fed by that, then you want to look for a program that's going to empower that freedom. If you're finding that difficult, then you might want a program that has it a little more laid out for you. This is a good place to think through if you like that much creative freedom like Dana does. Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that grad school and the Master in Environmental Management program in particular have really, that's been a really cool opportunity for me to kind of figure out what direction that I want to go in career-wise and really narrow that down a little bit, at least to an attainable goal. Because I came in here pretty broadly, knowing that I wanted to go into natural resources and some scale of innovation. And with Western and with this VISTA-ship, actually, I really got tapped into some really cool resources in mine reclamation, which I never realized that was something that I'd be interested in. Now I'm working on like revegetation projects, which is really cool. So yeah, totally what Dana said is you kind of get out of it what you put into it. And I'm still trying to narrow down what kind of careers and jobs that I want to be looking for after I'm done with this. But this definitely gave me, both the VISTA and grad school gave me a really good interdisciplinary kind of narrowing down of like what I want to get into.
Thanks,
and Western's an awesome program too. It's 40 minutes from Crested Butte, which is why I moved here.
Yeah, and Skylar, you're just a couple weeks in, really. But Skylar brings to the program so much experience and a lot of international career momentum. So he has interesting reasons for this pit stop professionally. Advice, Skylar, as someone who just went through this process of finding a program?
Oh, geez, not really. Yeah, I don't know if I have any advice. Yeah, that's a good question. In some ways, it felt like I had a lot of time to really do a lot of research, and there was no rush to get into grad school. And then suddenly I realized, oh my God, what am I still doing looking? It's time to pull the trigger. And I felt this sense of urgency because I saw that once I have the skills and the letters behind my name, that would enable me to do the work that I really wanted to do. Someone told me once that you have to build your dream, or someone else is going to pay you to build theirs.
Wow.
Yeah, right. I think what helped me a lot was speaking to my mentors in my life, my parents and other like professional colleagues that I have, like people that are doing the things that I want to do, and get their advice. and especially, like I got advice from people saying not to go to grad school. And, it was interesting just feeling my own like resistance to that advice. And it kind of like solidified it for me that like the fact that I was kind of, hesitant to accept that like, oh, I don't need to go to grad school. It said, okay, well, wow, maybe that's telling me something that inside that it is something that I want if I'm willing to notice these feelings of defensiveness.
Interesting. Yeah. And the why is so complex. For those of you who are better visual learners or readers, I just typed this and put it in the chat here, summarizing sort of what I threw together in terms of, the process, right? And so here's a series of 4 questions you can take to guide your process. What programs allow me to pursue the questions I must ask? What profs in those programs ask those questions, and did I like talking with them? You better get along with that person, right? Or be inspired by them if they're ornery. 3, what is that program's record placing folks in the career I want, and how is that built into culture and curriculum? And 4, how does that program allow me to experiment with a livelihood based on your values? Sorry, I should say my values, but I cranked this out. 4, how does that program allow me to experiment with a livelihood based on my values? Those are the guiding questions for finding the right program. If you want to get in touch with me, all of my contact info is on this website, jhausdoerffer.com. I'm also on Instagram, John Hausdoerffer. I don't have a fancy name on Instagram. But we have a couple minutes for questions, right, Josh? And then I think you send them a
Absolutely.
eval form.
Yeah, we'll send the link out for about evaluations. But yeah,
I'd love to field some questions. Have a look at these 4. Maybe Josh, I'll keep this Zoom chat room open for a bit. If people are scribbling, these are your guiding questions. Having been through degrees myself and having created 4 master's programs from scratch, and these are the questions, and advised undergrads going to many grad schools for 20 years and then bringing in grad students. These are the questions. If you're asking these, you're going to find the right program. I'm going to spend the rest of the day thinking about Skylar's quote. Either you build your dream or someone else pays you to build theirs. That's kind of mind-blowing. Any questions? Happy to help. Aiden?
Hey. Sorry, I've got this weird old man behind me.
I know
I was
that
wondering, do you actually? For some reason, people need. I found this on the side of the street, and it seems like it resonates with a lot of people, so I kept it around.
Take the Antiques Roadshow. But anyway, go ahead, Aiden.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but something that I've always kind of thought as an imperative condition for me to allow myself, I guess, to go to grad school is to somehow get involved with a professor and or have some sort of GA position, work on research or something like that, that gives me, I guess, a monetary incentive to be in grad school, because I'm definitely am a Gen Zer and am worried about money constantly. So it is something that I always feel like I need to do. So I guess my question is, how do people typically go about getting involved in like research at the graduate level? Is it simply like contacting professors that are in a field that you that you're interested in?
Yep.
Okay.
From their website and their written work, you can figure out if they pursue your beloved questions and your career goals in the way you want.
Right.
Since that, then you connect with them on the phone. Never go to a PhD program that will not fully fund you.
Right.
Masters are different. Masters are different. Professional masters are even more different. Do not take a PhD offer that will not fund you with a TA-ship or an RA-ship.
Okay.
And that means tuition waiver, healthcare, and living expenses at the PhD level, because you are the exploited labor force of the university.
True. Yeah. Okay.
At the master's level, most master's programs, they don't offer TA-ships often. Some do, like English Lit, you're teaching freshman writing, history, you're a grader. In my program, I didn't think it would be useful to my students. Most of them don't want to be professors. So instead, I created fellowships around the work they will want to do in the world, whether it's AmeriCorps VISTA, like the folks you're meeting today, or we have other kinds of fellowships focused on mountain communities. That Cold Harbor piece of land has 10 fellows a year. I need to win the lottery to make them full rides, but right now they cover like a third to half of tuition.
Okay.
So I just added a question 5 in the chat.
It's apt.
That's a special number 5 for Generation Z. You're asking the right questions. Anyone else? These are guiding principles, and come to terms with your why. Use VISTA to come to terms with your why for grad school. And then find these principles as a way of guiding you through the research of finding the right fit. And, you might work backwards from the employer to the grad program, the job you want, right? Go ahead, Alina.
I realized I was muted. Okay. I was actually, you had commented something about knowing also part of your livelihood is where you want to live. And something in my mind when I'm thinking of master's programs is like, I want to apply to a master's in the community that I want to live in. And I'm kind of wondering how much is that actually like valid? Do I, like if I did theoretically go to a master's program somewhere else that was not rooted in that community and then tried to move to wherever that is there a less chance of, I don't know, being able to assimilate and be productive there,
Yeah, if you're going into an academic program to become a professor, it doesn't matter where it is, because to become a professor, you have to go through an international search, kind of like the NBA draft. You don't know where you're going to end up, right?
Yeah.
If it's a professional program, then, it really can help to be in that community. So you either want the university there or like us to have a distance option so you can build connections. And absolutely, actually 10 of those VISTAs I mentioned who did the master's with us, out of those 10 VISTAs, 3 of them are now executive directors of their organizations. In a combo of the master's project with the VISTA convinced the board that they were indispensable, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, that kind of program, why get a master's and then do an internship? Find a program that built the internship into the program.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And as far as that, you're making yourself indispensable and you're having the real world application and making the connections while you're there. So I think personally for me, as I'm thinking of master's degrees in the next year, within the next 2 years, I'm trying to see is that like a professional master's that I should be looking at then more so than?
Yeah, if you don't want to be a professor or like a public lands scientific tech, you want to find an MPA, a green MBA, an MEM, kind of professional, applied professional degree.
Yeah. Thanks. That's kind of the track I'm on right now.
You want to know their career placement rate. You want to know, those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great. Well, all of my contact info is on that website. I'm grateful for your time today. One of the things Josh and I have worked out is that, and this gets back to Aiden's question, we have 5 fellowships a year for incoming MEM students who have AmeriCorps in their background, and we match their Ed Award. So your 6,200 becomes 12,400. and we do 5 of those a year. So if you're interested in what we're doing, I really want to be a resource for you for whatever grad program you're interested in, and know you can reach out for that. If you like what we're up to, you might want to apply for one of those. And applications are due November 1st, and we'll make them free as long as there's COVID crises. Josh?
I just wanted to hop here and say thank you for doing this. We appreciate it and all the advice, and thanks again. Hopefully we'll have you back when we actually get to do in-person trainings.
Yeah, I want to see y'all in DC. I want to do my talk called "What Kind of Ancestor Do You Want to Be?" And then maybe go for a walk in the mall, and we'll take some statues down together. Oh no, AmeriCorps VISTA. Just kidding, Josh. But no, really, thank you to my team. The VISTA is working for me, and to Josh and John Michael for supporting this experiment. So hang in there, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. We'll send out a link to the evaluation, and appreciate you guys coming.